Nick Nikiforakis joins me on this episode to talk about Cardano scams. He is a professor at Stony Brook University in Long Island, New York, and he's talking about all these scams, how they work, why people fall for them, and what we can do about it. He has this Twitter bot that is created called Cardano Phishing, and it tweets out various sites that it detects and has reported to various services to take them down. He also talks about some future developments that he'll be doing in regards to Cardano and security for this type of scam stuff. So it's pretty interesting what he's trying to do. If there's anything that you take away from this interview, it's that there is no such thing as an ADA giveaway. No one will give ADA away for free. And I've done a video breakdown of a scam site, and you can look at the link there in the top right corner and you can check that video out. Now, if you enjoy this type of content, please make sure you give us that thumbs up, click subscribe and hit the notification bell and hear more from us real soon. All right, let's get into this interview with Nick.
Yeah, gotta do it like that. You've been listening to the Learn Cardano podcast.
Right, I have Nick here joining me on the podcast for this episode. He's the creator of something very useful, and I'm glad this is around in the community so people are a little bit more aware of these type of things. It's called Cardano Phishing Bot, and if you jump on Twitter and follow the account, which I'll post links to in the show notes, it's a cool little tool if you put notifications on so that so anyone that's following it will know when a scam has appeared and what it looks like, so you can alert the community and let everyone know. Nick, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's start off like I always do. Could you please tell everyone a little bit about your background, how you got into crypto, and specifically how you discovered Cardano?
Sure. My name is Nick Nikiforakis. I'm a professor in Stony Brook University, which is located in Long Island, New York. My background is in web security and privacy. So that's the type of research that I do at the university. These are the types of courses that I teach, computer security for undergraduate and graduate students. Crypto is something that has been very popular in my field for the last, I would say, 10 years, pretty much since the beginning of Bitcoin. It was something that I was avoiding for a long period of time. There were a lot of smart people around me that were saying that this is all a scam and this will never work. And I just took them at their word. But for whatever reason this year, I decided to actually look into cryptocurrencies myself. And that's when I discovered that they were wrong, pretty much. I trusted their judgment when I shouldn't have. I should have actually looked into things myself. So I started looking into Bitcoin specifically and understanding the proof of work protocol and the consensus mechanisms. I started investing some of my own funds into Bitcoin. And then I don't remember exactly how, but I learned about Cardano and ADA and Charles Hoskinson, right? And I went down this new rabbit hole there with proof of stake, right? And hardware wallets and the community voting on things through Project Catalyst. So that's how I arrived at Cardano specifically.
And thank you for being here as well. It seems like we're going to get a little free lecture about web security in general. So thanks for this. So can you tell us about this bot that you've created for the community?
Sure. Yeah. So I was, when I started reading into Cardano and watching videos from Charles Hoskinson, right, and I was just scrolling on YouTube one day and I saw that there was a live event that was, at Cardano, and there were thousands of people watching it. And I said, oh, let me see who's talking about Cardano and what it is that they're saying. And I clicked on it and I saw what people now know is a scam, where effectively someone had, created a video montage of taking an old interview of Charles, right, embedding it in a larger image that says there is some sort of Cardano event going on, and then encouraging people to go to a specific website to participate in that event, right? And then that website pretty much, again, had some sort of authoritative picture of Charles, right? And was using nice, CSS style sheets to make it look all very professional. They were telling you, look, we are giving ADA away, just send, this much ADA, or, send as much ADA as you want to send over some threshold. This is an interesting part of the scam, actually, that there is a lower limit. and we will double it, right? And given my background, I immediately knew that this was a scam, but it was actually the first time that I had encountered this scam, right? And then I kept pretty much, once you notice something, you can't stop noticing it again and again and again, right?
Yeah.
And so the magnitude and the number of scams that I was watching on a daily basis motivated me to sit down and actually build the Cardano bot that is on Twitter.
I see on Facebook, on Twitter, messages from people and posts saying, "Is this real?" Or even worse, I see people saying, "Yeah, I don't believe in Charles anymore. I sent him 10,000 ADA, 20,000 ADA, and he never sent anything back. Like, what's the deal? What's up with this project?"
Right.
How are people falling for this?
Yeah.
Like, what are the scammers doing to trigger people to actually want to send ADA to a random stranger?
It's very, very unfortunate. And so there is this, type of attacks in computer security called social engineering. And of course, there is this social engineering exists in the real world as well. But effectively, it involves attackers convincing people to act against their interests, right? And so phishing, the traditional phishing, when you get an email from your bank and then you send someone your username and your password, that is the prototypical example of social engineering. And so social engineering attacks pretty much evolve, and they just keep up current with the times. So in the US, when it's tax season, you have a lot of IRS scams where people call you and they claim that you owe back taxes, and suddenly you need to go and buy gift cards from Walmart to pay back the IRS, right?
Why would anyone use gift cards to pay for your tax? It's strange. Yeah,
I think it's a game of numbers, right? So when you have, in the US, for example, when you have 330 million people, what fraction do you need to fall for it, right? You can make a lot of money when we're in the 0.000% of people that you call, instead of hanging up with you, actually engage with you. And these guys, they use all these tricks from social engineering. So they appeal to authority. There is urgent language. There are consequences, right? And they typically try to, like, for example, for other types of scams, they work better on older people, right? And I guess now with crypto scams, they will work, assuming that it's more the younger people that are involved in the cryptocurrencies. Now these are the scams that work more on the younger people. Yeah. But there is also an interesting technical part of this that I can go into if you want.
Yeah, please.
So if you think about, let's say, 15 years ago or so, it was very easy to get malware on your computer. So you would land on the wrong website. You didn't need to download anything, right? You didn't need to download something sketch and do something. You would actually just be infected merely by visiting that website. And so this was the time effectively of browsers being in their nascency, being vulnerable to a lot of exploits. And so if you would just land on a website, you would get infected, malware would get installed in your machine, and it would do whatever malware would do. Steal your data, steal your emails, steal credit card numbers. But in the last 15 years, the browser vendors like Mozilla Firefox and Google Chrome, they have done these great advancements in security where your browser is sandboxed. And the end result of this, and there's a lot of investment in terms of security, the end result is that it's very, very difficult to have an exploit where you just visit a website and something bad happens, right? So what has happened is, because this is so difficult, attackers have pivoted away from this type of drive-by downloads, this is what they were called, into social engineering scams, right? Because now the weak part of this interaction is no longer the browser, it's the person operating the browser. And so, instead of downloading something, now you are actually asked to perform an action. And again, you have all of these, classic signs of hurry up, the big picture of Charles, fear of missing out, this scrolling list of supposed transactions that most of these websites show you when you visit them, and then people just fall for it, right? And they send their data.
Yeah, I really think that this whole social engineering thing is it's very, very interesting, and how scammers have attached themselves to human emotion to actually get past security and part ways, make people part ways with their hard-earned cash. Like one person I know personally got a Microsoft tech support phone call, and they had to do a screen share with them to do some sort of testing, and of course their whole process of the scammers either store something and then ask for payment. She went off and tested something or rather for her bank account just to make sure everything's okay, and within a few hours her bank account was wiped clean. It's
exactly. We actually, pivoting off of that, we my students and I, like 2 years ago, we published the largest study of technical support scams, which is exactly what you described, right? And so we build actually a tool that discovers them in the wild. So this shares similarities with the Cardano bot on Twitter. So we have methodologies that we can find bad things online. So we kind of go out looking for them as opposed to trying to avoid them like a normal person would, right? Yeah. And then the second component was actually that we interacted with 60 scammers on the phone. So we called them up, pretended to be victims, gave them access to virtual machines that looked realistic, and then we were recording everything. So we pretty much caught all their tricks, their social engineering tricks, the IP addresses that they were remote connecting into our machines, how long it would take before they talked about dollars. So we produced quite a detailed report on the techniques that these guys were using. But if you think about this, for the technical support scams, you would need to call someone, right? Give them access to your machine, let them do their song and dance about how your machine is infected. Be convinced that you're indeed infected, and then accept a charge and give them your credit card, or in your friend's case, somehow access to your bank account. With the crypto scams, actually, there's only one thing that you need to fall for, right? And if you fall for it, it's done. There's no reversing of transactions, right? You can't call your bank or your credit card to cancel anything. It's done, right? So in some sense, even though it targets a smaller part of the population, just because of the cryptocurrency being applicable to a small part of the population, the steps to a successful scam are fewer.
And it relies on the person just sending cryptocurrency to a particular address. So how do we stop this?
Yeah, this is the typical. This is pretty much, how do we stop phishing? How do we stop technical support scams?
Yeah.
This is the new edition of how do we stop this. So pretty much the answer for this is always this two-part solution of a technical approach and an educational approach, right? And the technical approach is what I try to do with the Cardano Phishing Bot on Twitter. Where effectively I have built the infrastructure that will find this and tell you that these things are out there. So you can know that this is an issue. You can maybe tell your friends. People who just went into Cardano will maybe hopefully see a tweet about a scam, calling it a scam, before they actually see a real scam in the wild by themselves. So technical approaches that find these things in the wild and initiate takedowns, because there's not much else you could do, right? People can. It's even easier than before, right? You can just create an arbitrary number of wallets. You can keep changing wallets, so there's no wallet that you can block per se. There's no wallet address that you can block, right? And you can keep registering domains. So there is a technical part of finding it early and killing it so that it reaches as few people as possible. And then the educational component, right, which through your podcast and through all the other resources that are there in the ecosystem, people have to sort of be told that this is a thing, it happens daily. You really need to be aware that, if you see a big picture of Charles on a website promising you money, you should not believe this.
I know. Charles actually has done videos about there is no such thing as a ADA giveaway, and you should not be parting with your ADA for any reason whatsoever. I find it really interesting how convincing they do make it and how realistic it all looks. And then if you look on YouTube, when you have a look at some of these scams, they have thousands of people watching. They're on a fake channel which they may have created, and the fake channel has thousands of subscribers. And how do they do this? And plus, it's on the homepage of YouTube, so they've worked the algorithm, and they're appearing right on top. How are they doing this?
I'm still in the exploratory mode where I'm trying to understand, how scammers are doing what they're doing. So one thing that I've understood is that at least for some fraction of the YouTube accounts, they hack them. right? So they find channels that have thousands or tens of thousands of followers already, right? And then they hack them. Presumably, they do like a credential brute forcing attack. A lot of people reuse passwords. So if they know who's the owner of the, who's the owner of the channel and what is their email, they could look in previous password dumps from other hacks in the last 10 years and potentially assume that they're reusing passwords across, let's say, Gmail and something else that was hacked. So through these steps, they can actually get access to that. So they get immediate access to a large number of followers that are ready for them. And then they apparently can go through and change the name of the channel, change the logo of the channel, right? And so this could be something about golfing, and suddenly it has a picture of Cardano, and it says Cardano, right? And now they start doing lives. And this is also very interesting. I noticed that, so I haven't figured out yet if they are expecting people to just find the live by themselves on YouTube, or if they have a way of feeding traffic to YouTube, right, towards their live. But what I noticed is that sometimes if you search for live YouTube videos and you specify the keyword Cardano, you get things that are clearly scams. I mean, you can tell from the thumbnail that this is a scam. But once you click it, the video actually is unrelated. And what I've noticed is that it's like another YouTube video, potentially related to investing, where they have zoomed in to part of the video, and that's the only part they're showing you. And that this zooming in part, I think they're doing this to evade detection of double material, where YouTube recognizes that you're uploading someone else's video. So they're evading that. And then they choose when to actually effectively make this really live. So they switch away from this, zoomed in, unrelated video of someone talking about something random to this, prepared presentation supposedly of Charles with the domain to the website, the little window showing Charles talking about Cardano, and then hoping that people will pretty much pivot from YouTube onto their malicious website.
Wow. Okay. Very, very sophisticated. I'll be updating my passwords. What other security tips are there? So unique, strong passwords is definitely one. Can you give us and the audience a couple of more security tips so we can protect ourselves?
Of course, yeah. So the passwords is pretty, if you would do one thing, it would be passwords, right? So we have to stop thinking that we will create in our minds a strong password and we'll remember it. This will not work because each person has probably more than 100 accounts at this point across the web. And so if you start reusing your password, what you're doing is that you are increasing the chances of getting hacked, right? Merely by just one of these websites where you use your password gets hacked, their password database is dumped, people crack it, and then there is an army of bots already. It's happening daily that is then trying all of these credentials across other services, right? So you should really, not you specifically, I mean, you included, but pretty much everyone listening to the podcast should not reuse passwords ever, period, right? And the only way of doing this is through a password manager, right? We don't have the capability of remembering 100 strong passwords. So using a password manager, right, either an online version that you pay for like LastPass, or like an offline open source version like KeyPass, which is what I use, and then pretty much you need to remember one strong password that locks and unlocks this password manager, right? And once you do that, then all your other passwords are available for you. You don't need to remember them anymore, and they can be arbitrarily complicated with uppercase and lowercase and special characters. So really pivoting away, moving away from, I'll remember the passwords in my head, to a password manager where you really have unique, strong passwords per website. That's like the single most important thing that people can do. Another thing is obviously maintaining this very skeptical attitude when you're browsing the web, right? I think in my mind, I've tried to understand why, let's say my parents or my grandparents, why they think the way they think. And I've made this analogy with television, right? That when we were growing up, there was a number of channels, and whoever was on the TV had certain levels of authority implicitly, right? Because no one could just get on TV, right? You would need to get a license, broadcast, pay a lot of money to, potentially the government to get the license to broadcast. And so people that are coming from this mindset, whatever I see on TV is to a certain extent authoritative and trustworthy. If you carry this over to the internet and you say whatever I see on the website is therefore, because a website says it, right? It's authoritative and trustworthy. That's a very wrong mindset to have, right? And so people who are more technical, they know that you can go out and buy a domain name that says, getcardanonow.com for $10. You can get some free hosting, and you can have a scam online in 5 minutes. And this can be a beautiful picture of Charles, right, with very, beautifully made pages that it's all completely fake, right? And so people have to really, become more skeptical, right? There is this usual saying, I think you may have repeated it in your podcast, that says, if something is too good to be true, then it's true, right? Just learn that no one will send you money just because you went to that website at that time. Right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So there's some absolutely brilliant tips. I think this whole authoritative thing on the internet, if it's on the internet, it's real. I think it's an issue across multiple different factors of our lives. It's not just these scams and Cardano and cryptocurrencies. It's all the way down to politics and everything else that is published online. So it's a little bit of a mindset that people need to, I guess, wake up to and change in certain things. All right. So with all these scams popping up constantly, and you mentioned a little bit earlier, being able to take them down, how can we report them, get them taken down, and how does that process work?
Right. So effectively, you know this already, but maybe for your audience, a website is made up of a couple of parts. So there is a domain name like google.com or, getfreeada.net. So there is this one element of a website being online. And then there is the hosting provider that is providing hosting for that domain name, right? So that they're serving the HTML pages and the JavaScript and the CSS for your browser to render the website that you're going to. So you already have two parties where if one of the two parties is missing, the website doesn't work. And you also have something above them, which is the registry. For example, if you have a .com domain name, then I believe it's VeriSign. VeriSign will be the registry, right? So when we report things, effectively, we can either report them at their source. So we can tell the place where they bought their domain name, let's say GoDaddy or Namecheap. We can tell them, hey, here is a scam. If next to this, we have the hosting provider, where, your domain name you may have purchased and you may be managing the domain name on Namecheap, but you're hosting the website, let's say on Amazon Web Services. So you could also potentially report the offending IP address to the hosting provider. And so these are pretty much attacking the problem at the root. And then you have other programs that are running to protect users, where the website can still be online, but your browser makes it really, really difficult for you to get there, right? So most of us at this point have encountered at least one, scary looking picture from our browsers that says you're about to go to a deceptive website. Are you really, really sure you want to go? And over the years, they have made it increasingly hard for you to want to go there, right? You have to click on something and then click on another something, right? So they're really trying to stop people from just clicking through easily and reaching to the bad website. So you could, in theory, go ahead and report this malicious site to, for example, Google Safe Browsing or to OpenFish with a PH. And then they do their vetting, however they do the vet, because, of course, you can have false reports. And then this website will be added to a list of bad websites, pretty much, that your browser tests against each and every website that you go to, so that you may believe the YouTube video, you may type the domain name, you're about to go to the website, but it's now your browser stopping you, or at least making it very difficult for you to proceed. So pretty much, what people can do when they encounter such a scam is if they could take 1 minute to, let's say, report this to Google Safe Browsing, that's about how much it takes. That is very helpful, right? And if someone has 2 minutes available, maybe they can do one more report to the registrar, for example, Namecheap, right, or GoDaddy, or one of these. And the Cardano bot that I built is trying to help you in this process. So it's telling you where this thing is hosted, so you could, go to the right entity and tell them about the bad website, but also to warn the entities themselves. So Namecheap, for example, has been very much on the ball So I would say about 10% of the websites that my bot has been discovering were hosted on Namecheap. And even though I wasn't tagging Namecheap or anything, right, it was just pretty much in the text of the tweet that says that the hosting provider for this current scam is Namecheap. They seem to run filters on tweets and to get like a notification when someone mentions Namecheap. So they are the most on the ball right now in terms of taking down scams very, very fast.
All right, that's absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that and letting everyone know how to report the scams and try and protect the rest of the cryptocurrency and specifically the Cardano community from these scams as well. So what's next? What are you working on next? How are you going to improve the bot? You got some other little projects that you're going to work on?
So I'm trying to figure out, how to make this the most useful that it can be. Right. So right now, pretty much I am tweeting, one tweet per scam that we find. And this has received some good feedback, and it has caused the takedown of at least 10% of the scams. So on the non-technical side, I'm trying to reach out to people that I know on companies and tell them about the scam. So for example, Cloudflare, I went manually and reported a few of these scam websites to them. And they just were not convinced that this is a bad site, right? And they are really, Cloudflare is one of the biggest services that these guys are using. So I would say, let's say roughly 50 to 60% of the scams that we find, they're hiding behind Cloudflare. And at the moment, as of right now, it doesn't appear to me that the people who are receiving these reports of malicious websites, that they know about these types of crypto giveaway scams. So there is an educational component of the people that are vetting these reports, right, that needs to be done, because otherwise the utility of my reports is limited, right? If you just see it and you say, okay, this is a perfectly fine website, I haven't achieved much, right? And so I've thought about other things, for example, maybe automatically extracting the wallet address from the scam website so that maybe we can have a list of malicious addresses that could potentially be incorporated as an opt-in in various, wallets, so that if you're about, let's say, to move money to one of these addresses, you get a warning that says, this has been reported as a scam. Are you sure you want to proceed, right? I think people should still be allowed to proceed, because that's the whole point of, of crypto, that there can be no middleman that will tell you that, that you are not allowed to send money to who you want to send money. So philosophically, I think wallets should definitely allow you to lose money if you really, really want to lose money. Right. But maybe an extra little, warning that says this is a reported scam, click here to read more. That would be an interesting thing to try out if there is, wallet providers that have a taste for this. And then maybe another thing, what I mentioned from YouTube. Right now, I am not using YouTube to find scams. I'm finding a different way. I can go into a little bit more into detail if you want that. But what I would like to add is potentially this component where, let's say once an hour, I have a program that goes to YouTube, searches for Cardano, searches for live, clicks the top 10 videos, and then we do a bit of optical character recognition to see if we can again find the telltale signs of a scam, right? And pretty much then extract the domain name from that video, send a different set of crawlers to that domain name, make sure that this is indeed a scam, and then report it as we would report the rest.
Cool. All right. So constant monitoring and integration into the ecosystem itself. I can put you into contact with quite a few wallet creators at the moment, which I think they'll be very interested in integrating something like that and making it actually work. So thank you so much. Looking forward to these little updates. Not little, they're quite big updates, and all little security
They feel little, but there's a lot of code behind them.
Oh yeah, definitely. And thank you so much for all the effort and everything that you're doing there as well.
Of course, thank you.
All right. So how can people follow you, and what's the Twitter bot, the handle of the Twitter bot?
So the Twitter bot is called Cardano Phishing. I wanted to be Cardano Phishing Bot, but it was too long, so Twitter didn't allow that. So you can find that on Twitter. And there is no website as of today that corresponds to that bot. I think I'll make one in the next few months, and maybe post the list of malicious sites there in addition to tweets. Because I don't necessarily want to be present on only one platform. And then you can, if you care about web security in general, you can find my Twitter account, which is Nick Nikiforakis on Twitter. And from that, you can find my webpage with all our papers that are always sort of freely available. People can read. And there you can also find my email address if someone wants to contact me.
Okay, brilliant. I'll put a couple of links in the descriptions for this episode so people can find it as well.
Excellent.
Nick, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and learning a little bit more about these phishing scams and a little bit more about web security as well.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, gotta do it like that. You've been listening to the Learn Cardano podcast.
So make sure you're using a password manager of some sort and really strong passwords on that password manager. Every single site that you have has a unique password, so you're not compromising other sites that you have with one site that may get hacked. So this site A might get hacked, that password gets leaked, and that consequently allows access to all your other websites. Even though it's a strong password, because it's been hacked, it could potentially compromise all the other ones there. So please make sure you use a strong password and password managers and keep that skeptical mindset in regards to what you see on the internet as being true and may not be true. Okay. Now, thank you so much, Nick, for joining me on this episode. It's been quite enlightening, and I hope all of the audience has gotten something out of it. I sure certainly have. Okay. Now, if you really enjoy this podcast and you love this type of content, please make sure you give us that thumbs up, click subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and you hear more from us real soon.
Yeah, gotta do it like that. You've been listening to the Learn Cardano podcast. Gotta get it hype. Crypto is what we like, but this is not investment or financial advice. Gotta do your research, cause it's risky. We know it is. This show is educational and it's informative. Crypto's the future, really, it ain't no debating.